Hello everyone, my name is Hiroki Tajima from Tokyo Gakugei University in Japan. It's a great honor to be here today. In my presentation, I would like to talk about the concerns of teachers who play a leading role in supporting students with school non-attendance in Japan, and what kind of training needs can be identified from those concerns. The term school non-attendance varies in definition and interpretation from country to country, and this difference itself is often a topic of discussion. Here, I will briefly introduce the Japanese definition. In Japan, school non-attendance refers to a situation in which a student is absent from school for 30 or more days in a year, either continuously or intermittently, and does not attend school or cannot attend even if they wish to due to psychological or social factors. The number of such children has been increasing year by year, and addressing this issue has become an urgent challenge in Japanese schools. In response to this situation, many local governments in Japan have created new positions within schools to promote support for students who do not attend school. These positions are called school attendance support coordinators and teacher in charge of in-school support rooms. In this study, I focus on these two groups of teachers who play a central role in supporting students with school non-attendance within school. The school attendance support coordinator is responsible for organizing and coordinating school-wide efforts to support students with non-attendance issues. They serve as a key person connecting teachers, grade leaders, school nurses, school counselors, local education support centers, and parents, both inside and outside the school community. Next, let me explain the role of the teacher in charge of an in-school support role. In Japan, following a government notice issued in 2021, schools have been encouraged to create alternative learning and staying spaces within school grounds, where students can spend time and learn in more flexible ways. Teachers who play a central role in managing and supporting these spaces and are called teachers in charge of in-school support roles. These positions are relatively new and their institutional roles differ among municipalities. As a result, teachers in these roles are constantly adapting to new systems and responsibilities, often through trial and error in their daily work. In this changing environment, what kinds of concerns do these teachers face? That is the main focus of this study. Previous studies have pointed out several psychological factors behind teachers' difficulties in supporting students with school non-attendance. For example, feeling of resistance toward the student or a sense of disconnection in their relationship. Some studies have also shown that while certain teachers feel mentally distressed through these interactions, others experience personal and professional growth by engaging with non-attendance students. However, most of these studies have focused on homeroom teachers. Only a few have examined teachers who institutionally take the lead in non-attendance support, namely school attendance support coordinators and teachers in charge of in-school support rooms. Therefore, this study focuses on these teachers who play such leading roles. The aim is to clarify the features and structure of the concerns they experience. Furthermore, we examine how these concerns differ depending on their specific roles and their levels of experience in supporting students with school non-attendance. Now, let me briefly explain the participants and procedures of the study. We conducted a questionnaire survey targeting about 180 teachers from two municipalities, which we refer to as Street A and Street B. The questionnaire included three main sections. First, demographic information such as school type and years of teaching experience. Second, items regarding their experience with school non-attendance support. And third, open-ended questions asking about their concerns and difficulties in daily support practices. For the experience-related items, teachers selected from multiple options the type of support activities they had been involved in. For the open-ended questions, they freely described the difficulties, conflicts, or doubts they felt while providing support to students. Let me now explain the method of this study. We analyzed the teachers' open-ended responses about their concerns in supporting students with school no attendance by combining text mining and content analysis. For the text mining process, we used a software called KH-Coder, which allowed us to conduct word frequency analysis, co-occurrence network analysis, and hierarchical cluster analysis. After extracting co-occurrence relationships and clusters, we carefully read the contextual meaning of each word group and which reference to previous studies, developed semantic categories based on three analytical perspectives: the focus of the concern, the context in which arises, and its relationship to support actions. Next, we selected the words that represented each category, created a coding rule, and matched it with the original responses. We then calculated the proportion of responses corresponding to each category. The coding rule we developed is shown on this slide. Finally, we examined how the appearance of each category differed according to the teacher's attributes, such as the year of teaching experience, assigned role, school type, and the amount of experience in supporting non-attending students. Now let me move on the results and discussion. The teacher's concerns regarding support for students with school non-attendance were classified into 7 categories. First, concerns about communication with students, such as how and when to talk to non-attending students or how to interact with those who require special support. Second, concerns about student learning, including how to enjoy learning opportunities, how to evaluate progress, and how to advise on future pathways. Third, concern about communication with parents or families. For example, how to maintain communication or how to deal with differences in attitude between teachers and parents. Fourth, concerns about school organization and systems, such as uneven workload among teachers or differences in how teachers handle similar cases. Fifth, concerns about multi-professional collaboration, for instance, how to share information and coordinate teamwork with other professional and support staff. Sixth, concerns about the use and management of in-school support groups, including how to define their role within the school and how to build an effective operating system. 7. Concerns about support resources, such as a lack of manpower or time limitations for providing continuous support. In addition to these 7 categories, some responses did not fit into any of them. These included general or vague comments such as, "I'm always struggling," "I feel I lack ability," or "I want to learn what other schools are doing." Therefore, we coded these as vague concerns. Among all categories, the most frequent was concerns about school organization and systems. Many teachers pointed out unclear support structures within the school and differences in commitment among teachers. This suggests that their concerns were not only about personal skills or capacity, but rather about the institutional and organizational mechanism for providing support as a school. At the same time, many teachers also expressed concern about communication with students and parents, indicating that they often struggle to make appropriate judgment and responses in individual support situations. In recent years, school no-attendance support in Japan has shifted from merely encouraging school attendance to supporting student learning and daily life in more flexible ways. In this context, the goal of support have become more diverse, and the teachers' concerns appear to reflect this ongoing transformation. Next, I will discuss the differences in teachers' concerns according to their institutional roles and other attributes, such as year of experience, assigned duties, school type, and the amount of experience in non-attendance support. Although this analysis is still in progress, two notable trends have emerged so far. The first finding concerns the difference between school attendance support coordinator and teachers in charge of in-school support roles. When we compared the types of concerns by these two roles, we found that coordinators more often mentioned concerns related to communication with student parents, while teacher in charge of in-school support rooms more frequently mentioned concerns related to the operation and use of in-school support rooms. This difference seems to reflect their distinct position within the support systems. School attendance support coordinator mainly take responsibility for coordination and case management, including collaboration with external agencies, communication with parents, and decision-making about the direction of support. For example, whether or how to encourage a student's return to school. In contrast, teachers in charge of in-school support rooms provide daily ongoing support in a more stable and consistent environment, focusing on sustaining a safe and comfortable place for students. In short, even within the same framework of school non-attendance support, the institutional differences in role and responsibility shift to the focus of teachers' work and consequently lead to qualitative differences in the nature of their concerns. In addition, while all teachers in the former group provided responses about their concerns, more than 25% of teachers in the latter group reported having no concerns. It is difficult to determine the cause of this difference, but considering the subsequent analysis, it is possible that teachers in the latter group found it harder to express their concerns because the municipality had only recently begun uh, implementing the in-school support room system. Next, I will discuss the differences in teachers' concerns depending on the level of their experience in supporting students with school non-attendance. Ado- the above graph shows whether teachers have previous experience in various types of support activities. More than half of the teachers had experiences in activities such as interviews with students, individual support sessions, school-based case meetings, and home visits. Other type of support mentioned in the other category included online class participation, career guidance, and attendance in the school nurse's office. The graph below summarizes how many types of support each teacher had experienced. The largest group of teachers had experience with 4 types of support activities, while about 7.7% of teachers reported having no experience at all in non-attendance support. This figure shows a scatter plot illustrating the relationship between the number of type of support experiences and the number of type of concerns. The horizontal axis represents the number of support experience types and the vertical axis represents the number of concerns. The correlation coefficient was R equal 0.183, indicating a slight positive correlation. In other words, teachers who had experienced a wider range of support activities tended to have somewhat more concerns. However, this correlation is weak and cannot be considered statistically strong. From an interpretative standpoint, as teachers accumulate more experience, their understanding and perspective on support tend to expand, which may also make them aware of challenges and difficulties that were previously unnoticed. Thus, rather than suggesting that more experience leads to more concerns, this gentle positive correlation can be interpreted as reflecting an increased awareness of more specific and structural issues emerging through practical engagement in support activities. This slide shows the correlation between teachers' experience in non-attendance support and their type of concerns. Each row and column represent a category of concerns, and the color intensity indicates a strength of the correlation. Blue represents positive correlation, while red represents negative ones. First, please look at the top left cell showing the relationship between experience number and no concern. There is significant negative correlation, indicating that teachers with more experience are less likely to say they have no concerns. In other words, as teacher gains more experiences, they tend to become more aware of problems rather than feeling fewer of them. On the other hand, we can see weak positive correlation between the number of experience and categories such as organizational system and support group. This suggests that with greater experience, teachers begin to recognize structural and institutional challenges rather than focusing only on individual level issues. Next, if we look at the relationship between categories, there is a moderate position correlation between communication with students and communication with parents. This means that teachers who struggle with student relationships often face similar difficulty in working with parents. We also find a relatively strong correlation between learning support and support group. This indicates that learning assistance and the operation of in-school support rooms tend to be closely linked issues. In contrast, no concern and vague responses show vague concern show negative correlations with almost all other categories. That is, teachers who gave vague or no concern responses tend to feel fewer specific challenges in any domain. Overall, this figure clearly shows that less experienced teachers tend to have fewer or more ambiguous concerns, while more experienced teachers are more likely to recognize structural and systematic issues in school support. This implies that teachers' growth is not about reducing concerns, but rather about the transformation in the quality of concerns, reflecting a deeper and more professional understanding of their roles in supporting non-attendance students. Based on these findings, I would like to discuss some implications for future teacher training and the design support systems for school non-attendance. First, it became clear that many of the concerns held by teachers responsible for non-attendance support are not simply due to individual skill or experience. Rather, these concerns are deeply rooted in the institutional context, such as the school's support structure, the division of roles, and the framework for collaboration with external organizations. Therefore, when designing future training programs or support systems, it is important not only to focus on improving individual teacher skills, but also include perspectives that can help strengthen organizational practice and team-based approaches within school. From the viewpoint of training design, introducing reflective training program would be highly effective. Such program would allow teachers to verbalize their own concerns and reconstruct their support practices through dialogue with colleagues. Our analysis showed that teachers with less experience tend to describe their concerns in abstract terms. This likely reflects a lack of opportunities to share and discuss the managing of support with others. By creating space where less experienced teachers can review cases together with more experienced colleagues or other professionals, they can make the implicit values and decision-making criteria behind their actions more visible. This process can foster the intentional development of their professional judgment. In addition, since many teachers mentioned difficulties in communicating with students and parents, it is also important to provide practical, experience-based training such as case studies and role-playing exercise to help teachers expand their repertoire of communication strategies. Through such experiential learning, teachers can reflect on their own communication styles and acquire more flexible and adaptive approaches. To conclude, this study examines the concerns and needs for training among teachers who play leading roles in school non-attendance support, namely school attendance support coordinators and teachers in charge of in-school support rooms. We clarified both the content and structure of their concerns and analyzed how these concerns differed depending on their roles and level of experience in non-attendance support. The finding revealed that teachers' concerns were not limited to individual level issues, such as their relationship with students and parents. They also included structural challenges rooted in the institutional context. For example, school organization, multi-professional collaboration, and the availability of support resources. Furthermore, even within the same framework of non-attendance support, differences in institutional position and role changed the focus of teachers' practices and thus diversified the nature of their concerns. We also found that as teachers gained more experience, their concerns became more specific and reflective, suggesting that these concerns can serve as opportunities for professional growth. Based on these results, we argue that enhancing support for school non-attendance requires not only the development of individual teacher skills, but also the clarification of roles and the construction of collaborative systems at the organizational level. In addition, sustained support from the Board of Education is essential to help schools establish these systems as part of their long-term structures. Through such effort, we can build mechanisms that promote both individual professional development and maturation of organizational support systems, allowing the two to reinforce each other. The originality of this study lies in its focuses on teachers who serve as institutional leaders in non-attendance support. While previous research mainly explored psychological aspects or the experiences of homeroom teachers, this study connects non-attendance support to broader discussion of institutional and organizational design. In doing so, it shifts the perspective from individual professionalism to systemic capacity building within school. Of course, there are some limitations. First, the study was conducted in only two municipality, which means that regional differences, school size, and variations in local policy design were not fully reflected. Second, because the data were collected through open-ended written responses, the depth and contextual background of each concern could not be fully captured. Future research should therefore include interviews and case study to examine more precisely how teachers' concerns develop and what factors shape them. Finally, from a broader international perspective, the issues of supporting children who cannot or choose not to attend school is a shared challenge across many countries. Teachers everywhere struggle with similar issues such as emotional burden, coordination with families, and collaboration among professionals. Therefore, the structure of teachers' concerns and growth identified in this study may also provide valuable insight for designing teacher training and support system in other educational contexts around the world. In the future, I hope to extend this research through international compara comparative studies to explore diverse models of support for school maladjustment and diversification of learning. Here are the references for this presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.